Nick, how does all of this fit, right? I mean, we've now defined that standards and frameworks are different. They are interlinked, they're loosely coupled, but they're mutually exclusive. You could apply zero trust without having to worry about any others, well, zero trust framework and a methodology
Mm, mm.
without actually applying, some sort of ISO standard, which is a rigorous set of rules that you need to conform to. And I mean, Nick, this was your brainchild, right? To discuss how these things are interlinked. And you've got three great examples: NIST, CIS, GDPR. They, for the most part, I mean, GDPR is the orphan stepchild in the slide, but it's weird how you see that congruency across it based on various control areas.
That's right. And we could actually add ISO 27001, 27001, and the 2022 standard, or even the 2013 standard to this without much effort. And there's a difference here where we look at a security strategy that is about continuously checking and protecting, assuming that threats are everywhere in the case of zero trust, versus a compliance framework like GDPR, where we need to keep the rules so that our company is in line with a industry requirement or a legal requirement in this case. However, being GDPR compliant doesn't mean that you are secure. And if you follow the NIST and CIS guidelines, it does mean that you've got a high degree of security. If you look at the various control areas that we have, and because we talk about frameworks, we have things that we can measure. And that's the great thing about having a compliance framework. In simple terms: follow the rules and prove that you're doing it. So I have rules for inventory, access control, risk management, response, monitoring, and governance. And all of these, if we do them with rigor, really easily map onto each other. And we've got similar controls that actually map directly onto controls within frameworks and security strategies. So there is a massive overlap. And what we can see on the right-hand side is that from an app governance point of view, that we follow exactly onto those commonalities, because a lot of them are: do you know what you have? Do you know what's being done with it? And do you even have an inventory to start off with? So a lot of these things, Al, come down to the basics of doing things right and being able to prove that we're doing them irrespective of if this is a framework or a standard.
Mm. And it was great when we were chatting to the internal team. I think it was yesterday or sometime last week, and this slide was recently added to this deck to give you an idea of, it's an oversimplification, right? Follow the specific things. You need to know what you have, how people get access to it, what's your risk profile, how do you respond to things, not only retroactively but also proactively. The continuation of making sure that you know what's going on through monitoring, and then applying a governance layer to that. And the reason why it's important to at least have an idea of what these things are across the standards, because many organizations might want to implement something like an integrated management system where you need to be ISO 27000, ISO 14000, and ISO 9001 compliant, but a lot of these things overlap. So you don't have to
Mm.
repeat the same thing three times. And I suppose the reasons why you would want to go down this route. For me, a big thing from a compliance perspective, it ensures compliance because you're following a guide, right?
Mm.
And that's important. And I think for me, the messaging today is that you don't have to, go and ask ChatGPT or Copilot for these answers. It's literally available in machine readable format. Nick, you always talked about, security policy alignment and being able to reduce risks.
Gosh, isn't risk the middle name of everyone who's been doing this for a long time? The simple truth, though, is if we do anything with rigor and we do it based on a framework, we automatically reduce risk. And it's very much like marketing. Follow a 15-step process and you will have a measure of success. Same with threat hunting. Do the following 25 things every single day and you will have a measure of success. And what we're doing with all of that is driving down and managing some kind of risk. Now, risk, as we know, is not a one-time thing. And this is where your favorite slide is going to talk to you a little bit later, but continuous monitoring, continuous evaluation. Where is my risk and what am I doing about it?
Gone are the days where you set and forget a firewall in your organization and people need to access your data via that firewall. It was
true.
It was easier back then, right? Because literally the only way you could access, we won't talk about the VPN of sadness, but the only way you could access data was physically driving to a location, plugging in a network cable and connecting to your data sets, right? Running in a secured physical building. Today, you've got stuff everywhere in every possible repository accessed by, the primary reason we're here is because identity is the number one threat that we are all exposed to. And it doesn't matter if it's a user identity, a managed identity, or an application identity. It's the same thing. It still boils down to a single common denominator, and that's identities.